Hello, YouTube. It's Lanky with Hobbies of Man once again, and today is our ramble video. Now, I don't really have a good topic for this month's ramble video, so I'm just gonna do a recommendations slash my favorite kind of video. So today we're gonna talk about science fiction, written media, books, comics, light novels, manga, and we're just gonna talk about my favorite ones that also happen to be the ones that I would recommend to people if they wanted to check out science fiction. So this is just because I don't have a good topic, and I thought that a recommendations video would be good because it's always good to have recommendations. So there we go. Now, this doesn't really fit with this month's theme since it's supposed to be supernatural stuff, but it does fit with last month's theme, so I think it's okay. But yeah, let's get into it. I do want to point out that this is a ramble video, so this is not based on any kind of like very thoughtful like pre-planned ideas. This is literally like I sat down 2 minutes before I recorded the video and thought up of a topic. This is all off the top of my head. I mean, I did technically write down a list of things, but I mean, I literally just did that before turning on the camera. So it's just my opinion, unfiltered, unedited, very minimally edited in terms of like the video. So yeah, this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's just what I could think of off the top of my head as my favorites. So let's get into it. There's not going to be any light novels because I've only read like 6 light novels that were in the sci-fi genre. And although I could recommend some of them, and I actually quite like some of them, I don't feel that it's really like a good idea because that's like the only 6 light novels that are also science fiction that are available. So it's like, can I recommend them as my favorite slash good starters if there's like the only ones that are available anyways? So yeah, let's actually start now. Okay, so let's start with the books first. So the first book that I think or book series that I think you guys should read or that I really like is actually a self-published series. It's called Odyssey 1. It's by Evan Curry. It looks like this. I don't have it with me right now, but it's a really good series, very interesting. It's basically like humans post World War III in the 2000 or 2100s, I think, 2100 something, have finally managed to crack FTL, faster than light travel, right? And it's Americans, obviously, that did this. And we follow this guy, Eric Weston, who's the captain of the Odyssey 1, the ship that has this FTL capability, as he takes the ship and her crew and all of the weird scientists that he has on his team on the first maiden voyage. Now, this maiden voyage actually goes well. However, what they find after they fall out of the FTL travel, which is this kind of like warp speed kind of thing, they realize, or they end up in this intergalactic conflict between a race of like insect aliens called the Drazen and these human-looking aliens called the Primae. And so what happens after that is this unraveling of epic proportions of space opera level kind of things, and great action, awesome dogfights, awesome space battles, and you know, and even some actual like urban setting type of battles. It's a very, very cool kind of like just awesome series. I love it so much. I basically reread this series once a year. It's only 6 books right now, plus one spin-off novel and then another spin-off series. I haven't read the second spin-off series, but I've read all 7 of the current novels, at least twice each. The first couple I've read like 7 times each. And the spin-off I've also read twice. But it's just a really interesting, kind of very enthralling like series. And I think the most interesting aspect is actually that it has this kind of like humans or space orcs kind of vibe to it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know if you guys are like aware of this. I didn't actually know about this until I saw some random post on Instagram about it one time. It's basically this idea that aliens come to Earth and then are like, holy crap, these guys that live on this planet are insane. They do things that could kill them at any given moment, but they still do them and enjoy them because they're fun, right? Or whatever. And in Odyssey 1, there's a lot of that sort of like mentality. Like the aliens are like, holy shit, these guys from Earth are insane. They just like strapped on a bomb to a piece of metal and shot it into the sky to make rockets and stuff like that. And I think it's very funny. It's not really like played as a comedy bit, but I think it's very interesting that aliens would think that of us. So I always really like that. But yeah, that's the first recommendation / favorite series of mine, Odyssey 1. It's very good. It's by Evan Curry. It's available on Amazon. You can buy it physically or digitally, but I'm pretty sure it's like self-published by Evan Curry, or at least that's how it used to be. I don't know if he's moved on to a proper publisher yet or made his own yet, but I definitely recommend it. It's very, very good. Okay, let's keep up with the novels. So the other novel that I recommend is Republic Commandos by Karen Travis. Now, this is a Star Wars Legends series. So I think there was 4 books and 1 spin-off that was supposed to be a second series that got canceled. The first book is Hard Contact. It looks like this, and it's like one of the earliest sci-fi novels that I remember owning. I got it in 4th grade. I was taking a tax test, which was like standardized testing in Texas when I was in 4th grade. And I was done with my test really early. So the kid that was sitting in front of me was like, hey, you can borrow my book because I saw you didn't bring one. And I was like, thanks, I appreciate it. I'll read your book. Happened to be Star Wars Hard Contact. I love the series. Immediately had to buy it for myself and then buy the rest of the series. And I really loved it. It was very interesting. It was based on a video game also called Republic Commandos, which I think a lot of people have played. I've never played it because I'm pretty sure it was for Xbox, and at the time I didn't have an Xbox. And then when I did get an Xbox, I never bought the disc, the DVD to play that video game. So I never actually paid it, but the novels are some of my favorite books ever. I've read the first one countless times. Like, I'm pretty sure I've had to like patch up the book like more than 5 times, where like the cover would fall off. And I actually have to buy a new copy at some point if I ever want to read it again. But I have the book still. It's in this horrid condition, but I love it. It's such a good book. I really, really enjoyed it. The thing that was most interesting to me was probably that it was like clone troopers that were like basically Black Ops troops, and that the series focused a lot on Mandalorian culture. Basically, the clone commandos are like a Black Ops group of clones that are trained by actual Mandalorian warriors in like the ways of Mandalorian culture, as a way to make them more independent and then also make them better troopers. And so they become like actual people quite like easily. And so it makes like the story a lot more interesting and diverse than a regular Clone Wars story would kind of be. Not that the Clone Wars TV shows were any bad. I actually liked both of them, and the movie. But like the book's following a specific group of troopers, and it was really small. I think it was Delta Squad was 4, and the other squad was also 4. So it was like 8 troopers plus 2 Jedi plus 2 Mandalorian dudes. And it was really good. It was really amazing. And I really liked the series. So definitely check out Republic Commandos. If you don't like Star Wars, but you want to rate something similar, this isn't really like an equivalent. It's an equivalent recommendation, but it's not really like my favorite. But it is the Halo novel by Eric Nyland, which is called Halo Fall of Reach. It basically goes through the history of Master Chief from birth through the Spartan program into the Fall of Reach. So it's actually pretty good as well. But I definitely like Republic Commandos a lot more. So that's it for that. Now, okay. Star Justice is the third novel series that I want to talk about. There's quite a few better novel series that I could talk about, but most of them are like classic sci-fi, like Dune, Foundation, the other Dune novels. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I've read that is like really good, but most of it is also just classic. And classic recommendations aren't really the best because most of the time they're written in a way that isn't really compelling to modern readers, and so recommending those titles isn't really like great in my opinion. But Star Justice is a harem lit novel. It's written by Michael Scott Earl, and it basically follows this guy who's genetically modified in order to be this kind of were-tiger kind of person, and he goes on this mission by the dudes that experimented on him. He's kind of very like a Wolverine-esque kind of character. And during one of these missions, he bumps across this woman that is essentially a space vampire of some sort. And then they join forces. He goes away from the people that experimented on him. And now they're kind of traveling and becoming maybe not mercenaries, but also not exactly freedom fighters. They're kind of just doing what they have to, but along the way they kind of like develop relationships with specific people and develop this kind of freedom fighter mentality as they go across the universe and kind of like liberate different places from oppression, right? So it's actually really, really good, very interesting. The romance in it, even though it's a harem-lit story, is actually quite slow. So even by the end of the third book, there really isn't like a clear-cut relationship yet, which is quite different from harem-lit novels. Most of the time, the harem relationship is established immediately, like literally in the first two chapters. Technically, this is also the case here, but it doesn't really get into like what you would expect harem-lit to get into until much later in the series. So that's why I think it's a good recommendation. But yeah, that's it for the novels. I actually have just one comic book, and that would be Saga. And this is basically, if you like Star Wars and you like family drama and you like this idea of exploring kind of space along the way as you explore a human issue and the human condition, Saga is a good one. It's really interesting. It's so hard to make it not sound boring when I'm just explaining it, but reading it is like amazing. It's like just wonderful. Like I can't explain why I like it. Like, it's a cool vibe. It's these space wizards versus these space people with wings, and it's a galactic conflict or interplanetary conflict that kind of embroils a whole universe into it, kind of like Star Wars. It's a very lived-in world, kind of like Star Wars, but what it focuses on isn't this space wizard kind of like fantasy style chosen one trope, but rather this little girl who's retelling the story of her life, and retelling everything that happened to her parents, her grandmother, and the people around them as she was growing up. And it's a very compelling, very interesting story. It talks about parenthood and adulthood and these the situations that occur after violence has been a big part of your life. And it's very, very interesting, very, very compelling, and I just love it a lot. It's just really, really good. So I definitely recommend Saga. If you don't want to read anything else on this list, read Odyssey 1 or read Saga. Like, those are the two top tier ones in this list. So read whichever one you like, but definitely read one of them. Now, I'm going to speed through the manga since I've already reviewed all of it, but the first one is Space Battleship Yamato. Now, this is the Seven Seas Classic Collection version, and the reason why I recommend this one is because it's like the seminal text when it comes to space opera for manga. And honestly, some people say that George Lucas stole stuff from it, so maybe it's also the seminal text of space opera for the whole world, but it doesn't really matter. The point is that it's a good story. It talks about this idea of humanity squandering its intelligence and squandering its resources and its world, our Earth, and the fact that, fighting against aliens isn't really like the necessary thing, but rather it's fighting against our own humanity and kind of stuff like that. And it's a very, very interesting read. However, the original one, which is the one I'm recommending, definitely has outdated art, and obviously it also has kind of some outdated ideas. So you're gonna definitely have a little bit of culture shock reading it if you're used to modern manga, but it's still very, very good and very interesting. And honestly, the oldness isn't really bad. It's just like cool to be able to see what the genre was like back in the day. So it's really interesting. It's also not so like old that I can still recommend it without feeling like it's going to be very different from like modern stuff, which is quite different from like science fiction novels, which is why I didn't recommend any classics. But yeah, Space Battleship Yamato. Then I also have Kaiju number 8. Now this is a currently serializing one. It's a Shonen Jump adjacent title, like it's like a Jump Plus title. So it's, I think, digital first. It's obviously being published in physical format in Japan, and it's coming to the US soon here in December. But this is a military versus kaiju thing. It's like very similar to I don't know, Transformers, and in the case that it's like military dudes fighting giant monsters, or very similar to kind of Pacific Rim without the mechas or the mechs. But it's like a military sci-fi series where it deals with people that are fighting giant monsters with guns and giant weapons, right? And it's just really, really good. It's kind of very interesting because it follows an adult in a shonen series instead of a teenager in a shonen series, which is really good because it allows us to see this kind of like guy that has lost his dreams but has found the opportunity to chase them again and has chosen to grab this opportunity with both hands. And it's really, really good. It's very interesting. It's so hype. The character development and the emotion that all the characters feel is just amazing. Everything about it is just wonderful. I do weekly reviews or bi-weekly reviews on the channel, so you guys can check out the first one if you want, and then see if you like the series. But definitely it's just very good. I definitely recommend you guys read it. Then I think the last thing that I want to recommend is Eden Zero. Now Hiramashima is well known, and in fact I would say that at least in some circles he's rather infamous for having Fairy Tail be this kind of happy-go-lucky series, which it really isn't. I mean, it's a lot darker than people give Fairy Tail credit for, but just because there's a lot of moments where like the love for their friends kind of boosts them out in powers, like in every other shonen, people get mad at it because it's like a little bit more obvious, I guess. I don't know, but Hiramashima created a new series, Eden Zero, which is a space fantasy, in the sense that like Star Wars is a space fantasy. Like it's mostly a tech-based society, but of course there's magic involved in some way, whether you want to call it ether or the force or whatever, it doesn't matter. The point is that it's a space science fiction series that also happens to have magic in it, which is really, really good. And Eden Zero is actually quite a lot darker than Fairy Tail in general, like the pacing of it and the the characterization and the way the bad guys are, and just like everything about how the story develops is a little bit darker than Fairy Tail, and it's also a lot more concise and well planned out. So Eden Zero is a very, very good series in general, but it's also just wonderful because it has all of those Mashima tropes and ideas, you know, the fan service, the crazy obsession with friendship, the love between characters that just is like very wholesome and very beautiful that Mashima writes, but it also has this very badass, like epic science fiction version of it, and it's so good. I really love Eden Zero. It's probably one of my favorite manga series I've ever read, and I definitely recommend everyone read it. So there you go. That's Eden Zero. That's the last thing that I had on this list, I think. Yeah, that is the last thing I had on this list. So yeah, that's it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry it wasn't really like very concise. That's just a ramble video for me, and it's also sorry that it wasn't really that planned out. It was just kind of like literally I just wrote down some books before I started recording. But I hope you guys enjoy this and the recommendations are good. And let me know if you guys have read all of these or not. And let me know what you guys think about these series. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And see you guys later.